What if I told you to become a pro web developer, you have to understand web servers? And imagine if you're showing your future boss that you have developed your own web server, how cool is that?
Wow!
If you do this, you are already ahead of game. And this simple project make you outstanding from other candidates. And in this video, I will show you exactly how you can develop your own web server in C# step by step. But don't confuse with web server and HTTP server. An HTTP server handles and responds to HTTP requests from clients like web browsers. Web server is a broader system that stores, processes, and serves web pages. It is not only handles HTTP requests but also manages databases, network settings, and more. Web servers can host multiple websites and run server-side scripts like PHP or ASP.NET. So technically, web server is a broader term. It is a superset of HTTP server. And here in this video, we are going to make HTTP server, or in simple words, super simple web server. And one last thing before we begin, I'm using Visual Studio 2022 Community Edition, .NET 6.0 and C# as my preferred language. Also, I will share the source code repo so you can use it freely. But for now, let's dive in. The first thing is to create a new project in Visual Studio. Open Visual Studio, click on Create a New Project and select Console App. Make sure to give your application a meaningful name. For this example, I will be using Simple Server. Using the right framework, in our case, it's .NET 6.0. Step 1. Creating an HTTP listener. First, we import the required namespace. In this case, it's only one namespace, which is system.net. This gives us access to classes like HTTP listener, which we will use to handle our web server functionality. Step 2. Define the URL prefix. Next, you can add a prefix using listeners.prefixes. Actually, this line is telling the server to listen for incoming connections on localhost, and port is 8080. You can change the port if you want, but 8080 is commonly used for testing local servers. Step 3. Start the server. Then we start the server with this line, listener.start. And once the server is started, it's actually listening for any client trying to connect on localhost 8080 port. And with the console.writeLine command, we will know it is up and running. Step 4. Handling incoming requests. Now, here's where the magic happens. We have an infinite loop to continuously listen for new requests. And it is really important. When a client sends a request, this line gets the context. Think of the context as a container that holds both the request from the client and the response we will send back. And step 5 is accessing the request and response. Once we have the context, we can access the client's request and prepare for response like this. The request object holds all the information about what the client sent. In this example, we won't using it much, but in a real-world application, you could inspect the request to decide how to respond. And step 6 is sending a response. Next, we write a simple HTML response to send back to the client. And here I'm creating a very basic HTML page that is saying hello world. I'm converting the string to bytes because the server needs to send raw data over the network and text is transmitted as bytes. Step 7. Setting content length and sending data. We then set the content length of the response and write it to the client's output stream. This makes sure the server knows how much data to send and then it writes the response back to the client. The connection is closed after the response is sent. And that's it. We now have a fully functional HTTP server that listens for connections and serves a simple HTML page. You can open up a browser and visit localhost with the port 8080 and you will see the hello world message pop up. So this is all about HTTP server, or in simple words, you can call it super simple web server. And of course, you can improve this in two different ways. First, you can make the path to the HTML website dynamic. Second, you can allow the port to be dynamic. So you can use any valid port instead of always using 8080. So let's try to improve it. And this time I'm going to add one more project in the existing solution. So let's go back to the computer screen. So you can add a new project simply by right click on the solution, usually at the top of the tree, and then select add new project. And in the new project window, you can search for Windows Form App and then select Windows Form App, and for the project name, enter Simple Server GUI. Make sure you are targeting the correct .NET version that matches our existing project. In this case, we are using .NET 6 already. So I will choose .NET 6. For simplicity, I have added the code here and you can review it on the GitHub repo. I will add the link in the description. For now, you can start building your simple server GUI application as a Windows Forms project. I'm using a test site for demonstration purpose, and I will add this site into the solution. You can use this or choose your own site folder. You will also see the input field for the port number. You can mention a port like port 80 or port 1234. But by default, I have set this to 8080. Once you have entered the path and port, simply click launch. Your site will automatically open in your default browser. And this site is served by your local web server, which we just created. I have added some basic error handling, but of course, you can improve it a lot. And it's published on GitHub under the MIT license. So feel free to use it legally without any restrictions. You can make your own repository, copy my code. You can freely use it on your CV, make your portfolio, and land your dream job. I hope you enjoy it and take the opportunity to enhance it further. And thank you for watching.